Claire Harris did not expect an announcement. It was a regular Thursday night at her parents' dining table, the kind of dinner that happened out of habit, not celebration. The chicken was overcooked, the television was muted because her mother said background noise made her anxious, and the air felt tight in a way Claire had learned not to question. Then her father, Richard, tapped his glass with his fork. "Well," he said, smiling like a man delivering good news, "we've decided to use your bonus for the family cruise." Claire froze. "Pie bonus?" she asked carefully. Her mother, Susan, laughed like it was obvious. "Your urine bonus, honey. From work." Claire felt the room tilt slightly. "How do you know about that?" Susan shrugged, still smiling. "We read your mail." The words landed heavy and final. Across the table, Claire's younger sister, Megan, grinned like she'd already known how this would end. Her husband, Brian, nodded along, relaxed, confident. Claire stared at her plate, then back up. "You read my mail?" "Yes," Susan said lightly. "It came to our house." Claire was 37 years old. She paid her own rent. She paid her own insurance. She had built her career slowly and carefully without shortcuts or help. And yet her parents were talking about her income like it was family property. "It's a Caribbean cruise," Megan added. 8 nights. Balcony cabins. Richard leaned back in his chair. "Deposits are due tomorrow. $8,000. Brian smiled. "Don't worry, Claire. You're not covering everything. Mom's paying for travel insurance. We'll handle excursions." Claire nodded slowly, her hands resting flat in her lap. What bothered her wasn't the cruise. It was the certainty. The way they spoke, as if the decision had already been made. As if her consent was implied, unnecessary. "Okay," Claire said calmly. "Then you won't need me to do anything since it's already planned." Richard's eyebrows lifted. "Exactly." Claire smiled, small and controlled. "1 second," she said, standing up. She walked into the hallway and closed the door softly behind her. Her heart was beating fast, but her hands were steady. Claire pulled out her phone and scrolled to a number she had saved months ago and hoped she'd never need. When the HR representative answered, Claire spoke like she was rescheduling an appointment. "Hi, this is Claire Harris. I need all payroll and benefit documents sent to my new address, effective immediately. I'd also like to update my direct deposit." Behind her, she could hear laughter from the dining room. "Oh my God," her mother said loudly, amused. "She's being dramatic." Claire ignored it. She gave the HR rep her new address. She had already secured it. She confirmed the changes. She thanked them and ended the call. Standing there, phone still in her hand, Claire felt something shift. Not anger. Not panic. Relief. For the first time, she understood she didn't have to explain herself to protect herself. Claire was not rich. She was responsible. That difference mattered more than anyone in her family seemed to understand. She worked as a program manager for a regional healthcare organization. Long hours, strict budgets, constant accountability. Her bonus wasn't a gift. It was written into her contract, earned through performance targets and retention goals. The reason her parents knew about it was simple. For years, Claire had kept her mailing address at their house. She told herself it was practical. Her apartments changed. Their house didn't. Susan had always said, "I'll keep your important mail safe." Claire had believed her. Looking back, there were signs she ignored. Her mother casually mentioning details Claire never shared. Her father commenting on income changes he couldn't possibly know. Susan asking, "How's that new insurance plan?" when Claire hadn't mentioned switching. Each time Claire brushed it off. It was easier than admitting the truth, that privacy in her family was optional, and boundaries were treated like inconveniences. Being the reliable one had started early. When something broke, Claire handled it. When someone needed help just for a little while, Claire said yes. Her parents weren't cruel. They were comfortable. Comfortable letting her be the steady one. Her sister Megan was different. Megan needed flexibility, forgiveness, support. In their family story, Megan was the free spirit and Claire was the stable one. In reality, Claire had become the safety net. If Megan's rent came up short, Claire filled the gap. If a bill bounced, Claire covered it. And when Claire hesitated, her parents said things like, "Why are you making this complicated?" That phrase followed her everywhere. Asking for boundaries was complicated. Asking for clarity was cold. Asking for repayment was selfish. But using her money without asking? That was family. The first time Claire noticed the pattern clearly, it was over something small. Her sister Megan called her one afternoon, crying so hard Claire could barely understand her. "My phone is dying," Megan said. "The screen's cracked. It won't charge. I can't be unreachable with the kids." Claire was at work, staring at a spreadsheet. "What do you need?" she asked. "I just need to put it on your card," Megan said quickly. "Just the payment plan. I'll pay you back every month." Claire paused. "I can't do that." He didn't yell. She didn't explain. He just said no. 2 hours later her father called. "Why are you refusing to help your sister?" Richard asked, already annoyed. "I didn't refuse to help," Claire said. "I refused to put a phone on my credit." Richard sighed. "You're always making things complicated." That word again. Complicated. Claire hung up feeling like she had broken a rule she never agreed to. The requests grew bigger after that. A temporary loan because Megan's car needed repairs. A rent payment because the landlord messed up the autopay. A grocery bill because everything is so expensive right now. Each time there was a promise. Next month will be better. It never was. Claire knew the numbers. She always knew the numbers. Her parents' mortgage was paid off. Her father had a pension. Her mother talked openly about her savings. And yet when Megan struggled, everyone turned to Claire. No one asked Megan to budget. No one asked her to sell anything. They asked Claire to cover the gap. Her co-workers joked that Claire was the calm one. The person who never panicked. What they didn't see was how calm slowly turned into pressure. How being dependable became a job she never applied for. The mail issue got worse before it got obvious. One afternoon Claire's mother mentioned a credit card offer addressed to Claire. "I threw it out," Susan said casually. "You opened it?" Claire asked. "No," Susan said quickly. "It just looked like junk." But she knew it was a credit card offer. Which meant she had opened it. Then Richard made a comment one evening. "Good year for you," he said. "That incentive thing must have paid off." Claire froze. "What incentive thing?" He waved a hand. "You know, that bonus." He said it wrong. Like someone who had read the words instead of hearing them. That night, Claire logged into USPS Informed Delivery, the service that emails photos of your incoming mail. She scrolled back through weeks of previews. Letters she had never received. Bank notices. Benefits documents. Work correspondence. They weren't lost. They were intercepted. Claire sat on her couch staring at her phone, feeling something settle in her chest. Not shock. Recognition. By the time that Thursday dinner happened, the cruise announcement wasn't surprising. It was just the next step. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She didn't demand apologies. She made a list instead. Change mailing address. Lock down accounts. Separate finances completely. Document everything. The next morning, sitting in her car outside work, Claire opened her notes app and started planning like her peace depended on it, because it did. She found a one-bedroom apartment 15 minutes from her office. Clean, quiet, nothing fancy. She paid the deposit. She signed the lease. She opened a P.O. box. And for the first time she didn't tell anyone in her family. Claire changed every password she had. Banking. Even streaming services. If it had access she locked it down. She froze her credit. She added two-factor authentication to everything. She also started documenting. Screenshots. Dates. Transfers. Text messages. Notes labeled clearly, Megan rent, Mom asked, emergency. Not for revenge. For reality. When Susan texted, travel agent appointment tomorrow at 11. Be there. Bring ID. Claire read it from the floor of her new apartment, eating takeout from the container because she hadn't unpacked plates yet. She replied with one sentence. I won't be there. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Claire, don't do this. Claire set her phone down. For the first time in years she slept through the night. The calls started the next morning. At 11:26 a.m., Richard left a voicemail. His voice was sharp, controlled anger wrapped in disappointment. Call me back, Claire. This is unnecessary. 3 minutes later Megan called. Claire let it ring. Then a text from Brian. This is awkward. We're here. The agent needs the card for the deposit. Claire read the message without reacting. She noticed how no one asked if she was okay. No one asked for permission. They only needed access. At 11:41, Susan texted, "We can't finalize anything without you. The deposit has to come from the person whose bonus it is." Claire laughed out loud, alone in her apartment. They were learning in real time that money does not move without consent. After a moment, she grabbed her keys. Not to pay. To end it properly. The travel agency was in a small strip mall between a nail salon and a smoothie shop with bright green posters. Claire walked in and immediately felt the shift. Her family turned toward her like a courtroom reacting to the defendant's entrance. "There she is," Richard said too loudly. Susan smiled, forced and tight. "Claire, thank God." Megan didn't smile at all. "Are you going to do this or not?" The travel agent, a woman named Diane, looked relieved. "Hi Claire. We just need your authorization for the deposit so we can lock in the cabins." Richard leaned forward. "We already agreed as a family." Claire sat down slowly. "Diane," she said calmly, "who told you my bonus was paying for this?" Diane hesitated. "Your mother said you wanted to treat the family." Susan jumped in. "That's basically true." Claire nodded once. "Okay." She turned toward her parents. "The issue isn't the cruise," Claire said quietly. "It's that you opened my mail and announced my money like it was a shared account." Richard scoffed. "It was on the counter." Susan leaned forward, voice gentle. "We didn't mean anything by it. We thought you'd be happy to do something nice for everyone." Megan crossed her arms. "You always help. What's the difference?" "That word again. Boys." Claire pulled out her phone. "Diane," she said, "I'm not authorizing any deposit. Please remove my name from this booking." Diane nodded immediately. "Of course." Richard's face darkened. "Claire." Claire raised one finger. "I need you to listen." She took a breath. "There is no bonus money available for anyone to spend but me." Brian frowned. "But it's coming, right?" "It was scheduled," Claire said. "Now it's redirected." Susan's smile disappeared. "Redirected." Claire turned her phone so they could see the email confirmation. "Yesterday I updated my mailing address and direct deposit. All payroll documents go to my new address." Megan's voice rose. "You moved." "Yes," Claire said. Richard stared at her. "You didn't tell us." "I didn't feel safe telling you," Claire replied. "Because you read my mail." Richard slammed his palm lightly on the desk. "We're your parents." "And I'm an adult," Claire said evenly. "The post office agrees." Diane cleared her throat. "Without authorization from the payer, I can't process anything." That was it. No booking. No exceptions. Outside, the parking lot felt quiet, almost peaceful. Claire's phone buzzed before she reached her car. "Susan, what's your new address? We need it for emergencies." Claire stared at the message for a moment. Then she typed, "If there's a real emergency, call 911. Otherwise, you don't need it." She put the phone down and sat in the driver's seat, hands resting on the wheel. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't crying. She felt steady. For the first time, Claire understood something clearly. Boundaries don't destroy families. Entitlement does. And if someone laughs when you tell them they crossed a line, they will cross it again, unless you stop giving them access. The backlash came fast. Richard left 3 voicemails that day. The first was anger. The second was disappointment. The third sounded like heartbreak performed for an audience. "You've changed," he said in the last one. "This isn't how we raised you." Susan sent long messages filled with soft words and sharp meaning. "Family share. We were proud of you. We never thought you'd shut us out like this." Megan posted on social media that night. Nothing direct. Just a photo of her kids and a caption that read, "Some people choose money over family. Protect your peace." Claire didn't respond. She recognized the pattern now. When control is lost, the story shifts. The concerned face followed. An aunt called Claire the next morning, voice low and careful. "Your mother says you're not doing well. Are you okay?" Claire looked around her apartment. Half-unpacked boxes, a thrift store couch, a bowl of cereal for dinner. "I'm fine," she said. "Pause." "She said you're spiraling." Claire almost laughed. "I moved apartments and changed my address," she said. "That's not a spiral." Another pause. Then quieter. They read your mail? Yes. That's not okay, her aunt said softly. Claire thanked her and ended the call. She understood something important then. When people can't control your choices, they try to control how others see your sanity. Then came bargaining. Susan offered an apology if that's what you need. Richard said he'd forget the cruise if Claire came back to Sunday dinners like nothing happened. Megan texted late one night. I'll pay you back eventually. Can you at least cover the deposit so we don't look stupid? That sentence settled everything. It wasn't about hurt feelings. It was about optics. They didn't want accountability. They wanted the system restored. The one where Claire absorbed the pressure quietly so everyone else stayed comfortable. She didn't answer. Silence was the boundary. 2 days later, Claire received an email from the travel agent. Your family asked if they could proceed without you and settle payment later when your bonus arrives. I informed them this is not possible. Claire replied with one line. Thank you. Please don't share any of my personal information with them. Understood, the agent wrote back. That was the moment it hit her. A stranger respected her boundaries immediately. Her own family never had. Her bonus arrived the following week, clean, untouched, deposited into her new account. No envelopes. No kitchen counter. No laughter. Months passed. The quiet stayed. Claire used part of the bonus to breathe. She upgraded her workspace, paid down stress instead of debt, and started therapy not because she was broken, but because she wanted to understand why it took so long to protect herself. Her relationship with her family became polite and distant. Short calls. Neutral holidays. No financial details shared. They still told their version, that Claire abandoned them over a vacation. Claire knew hers. She didn't leave over a cruise. She left because privacy without respect isn't privacy at all. And love that depends on access isn't love, it's leverage. For the first time in her life, Claire slept without bracing for the next demand. The hardest part wasn't the silence from her family. It was the space it left behind. Claire didn't realize how much of her mental energy had been spent anticipating requests until there were none. No late-night calls. No urgent messages framed as emergencies. No quiet pressure to fix something she didn't break. At first, the quiet felt unfamiliar, almost suspicious. She caught herself checking her phone, waiting for the next demand. When none came, her shoulders slowly relaxed. She started waking up without a tight feeling in her chest. The 3 a.m. thoughts faded. For years, Claire thought exhaustion was just adulthood. He was wrong. It was emotional debt. Therapy gave her language for what she'd lived. You were assigned a role, her therapist said gently, and punished when you stepped out of it. That sentence stayed with her. Claire wasn't selfish for saying no. She was inconvenient. And inconvenience felt like betrayal to people who benefited from her silence. She learned something else too. Boundaries don't need to be loud. They don't need speeches or ultimatums. They just need consistency. Claire didn't argue anymore. She didn't defend. She simply didn't participate in arrangements made without her consent. Her parents tried once more months later. Susan called and said, "We're thinking of refinancing. You're good with numbers." Claire paused. "I'm not available for that." Susan sounded surprised. "Why not?" "Because I'm not," Claire said calmly. No explanation. No apology. The call ended awkwardly, but Claire didn't feel guilty. She felt free. She finally understood that being helpful should be a choice, not an obligation enforced by guilt. Claire's life became quieter but fuller. She decorated her apartment slowly. A cheap plant she kept alive out of stubborn pride. A small desk by the window. A place for her keys that no one else touched. She stopped sharing numbers. Stopped oversharing plans. Stopped offering solutions before being asked. And something surprising happened. Without her constant safety net, her family adjusted. Not gracefully, but reality has a way of forcing growth when shortcuts disappear. Claire never demanded apologies. She didn't need them. She learned the real lesson wasn't about money or mail or cruises. It was about access. If someone laughs when you tell them they crossed a line, they will cross it again, unless you remove the doorway entirely. Claire didn't choose money over family. She chose adulthood over entitlement. And for the first time in her life, peace wasn't something she earned. It was something she protected. Time did what arguments never could. It showed Claire who respected her boundaries and who only tolerated them. Some relatives faded out naturally. Others stayed but carefully. Conversations became lighter, safer. No money talk. No subtle fishing for information. Claire noticed she was no longer bracing herself before phone calls. She didn't rehearse explanations in her head. She said no, it stayed no. And the world didn't end. That realization alone changed everything. Her parents adjusted in their own way. Richard stopped calling as often. Susan learned to ask questions instead of making plans. When she slipped and tried to suggest something for the family, Claire simply didn't engage. There were no more scenes. No raised voices. Just limits that didn't move. First Susan tested them. "We were just thinking." Claire would interrupt gently. "I'm not part of that." The sentence felt strange at first. Then it felt powerful. Megan struggled the most. Without Claire stepping in, problems felt heavier. There were moments when Megan hinted, softened her tone, tried nostalgia. "Remember when you always helped?" she said once. Claire answered honestly. "I helped because I thought I had to." Megan didn't like that answer. But it was the truth. Claire learned that clarity can feel cruel to people who rely on confusion. The version of Claire her family missed wasn't the woman herself. It was the access. The convenience. The quiet fixing of problems behind the scenes. Claire grieved that loss. Not of closeness but of illusion. She let herself feel sad without turning that sadness into self-betrayal. Some nights were still quiet and heavy. But they were honest. And honesty, she learned, is lighter than obligation. A year later, Claire looked back at that Thursday dinner like it belonged to another life. The moment her mother laughed and said, "We read your mail," had been a breaking point she didn't recognize at the time. Now she did. That was the moment she stopped being a shared resource and became a private person. Claire didn't burn bridges. She simply stopped standing in the middle of them. And in doing so, she finally learned what freedom actually felt like. Claire noticed something else change over time. Her confidence no longer came from being needed. Came from being centered. She made decisions faster. She trusted herself more. When something felt wrong, she didn't search for permission to say so. That was new. Before, she would second-guess herself, wondering how her choice would affect everyone else. Now she asked a simpler question: "Can I live with this?" If the answer was yes, that was enough. There were moments of doubt. Holidays were quieter. Birthdays felt more formal. Sometimes Claire wondered if she had gone too far. But then she remembered how it felt to sit at that dining table while her money was announced like a prize. She remembered the laugh. And the doubt faded. Boundaries don't erase love, she realized. They reveal what kind of love was actually there to begin with. One afternoon, nearly a year later, Claire received a short message from her father. "Hope you're well. Just checking in." She read it twice. There was no request attached. No hint of obligation. She replied, "I'm doing well. Hope you are too." It wasn't reconciliation. But it was respect. And for Claire, that was progress. Claire no longer shared her financial milestones. When she earned more, she celebrated quietly. When she struggled, she handled it privately. She learned that not everyone deserves front-row access to your life. Some people only need a summary. And some don't need to know it all. That realization gave her a peace she hadn't known before. Looking back, Claire understood the truth she wished she had learned sooner. Being generous without boundaries doesn't make you kind. It makes you vulnerable. Love that ignores consent isn't love. It's control wearing a familiar face. Claire didn't change who she was. She changed who had access to her. And that made all the difference. Claire didn't rebuild her life in dramatic ways. There were no grand speeches or public victories. The change showed up quietly. She stopped explaining herself. She stopped justifying her choices. She stopped translating her boundaries into softer language so other people wouldn't feel uncomfortable. And strangely, the less she explained, the more peaceful her life became. Her parents still had opinions. They always would. But opinions lost their power when they were no longer paired with access. Susan once said, "I don't recognize you anymore." Claire answered gently, "That's because you never knew me without expectations." The conversation ended there. Megan drifted in and out. Sometimes warm. Sometimes distant. Sometimes resentful. Claire no longer chased consistency from someone who benefited from chaos. She learned that growth doesn't require agreement. It only requires resolve. The apartment became home in a way no place ever had before. Not because it was bigger or nicer, but because nothing in it felt borrowed, shared, or monitored. Claire cooked slowly, slept deeply, thought clearly. Her peace finally had walls. A year after the cruise incident, Claire realized something surprising. She wasn't angry anymore. Anger fades when you stop being violated. What remained was clarity, and a quiet confidence that didn't need applause. She thought back to the moment her mother laughed and said, "We read your mail." That laugh had revealed everything. People who respect you don't find privacy funny. They don't treat access as a right. Claire no longer feared becoming the bad one. She understood that being labeled difficult is often the price of self-respect. And it was a fair price. She didn't cut her family off completely. She simply redefined the terms. Polite, distant, clear. No finances, no leverage, no assumptions. Just adults choosing how close they were willing to be. The version of Claire who once absorbed everyone else's stress felt like a stranger now. That woman had survived by shrinking. This one lived by choosing. Claire didn't lose her family over a cruise. She lost access to people who believed love meant entitlement. And in return she gained something far more valuable. A life that finally belonged to her. Moral lesson. If someone laughs when you tell them they crossed a line, they will cross it again, until you remove their access. Boundaries aren't punishment. They are protection. Thanks you for watching, and please remember to tell us where you are watching from today. Hit the like button, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more of this.